Welcome back to another video, everyone. So it's been nearly 4 years now since the release of Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, and I decided to go back to my save file and fully complete it. I made a review on this game not long after it came out, and while I did talk about some of the problems I had with obtaining 106% completion, I didn't have the full experience of actually doing it until recently. So I wanted to take another look at this game after completing everything it has to offer, minus the developer relics, since they don't add to completion. They're just there for the very best players. And I might give them a try someday. After all, I'm going to need some type of content since we're going to be waiting quite some time for Crash Bandicoot 5. Anyway, let's open up a new save file and see what it takes to beat this game. We start off on Insanity Island. If anyone isn't familiar, this game features a dimensional map. It's similar to how you travel across the islands in Crash 1, except here you're traveling between dimensions. The first level is Rude Awakening. So let's take a look and see what we need to complete this level. What the hell is even all of that? Yeah, if you haven't played this series since the original trilogy, you're definitely in for a rude awakening. Let's explain what's going on here. Each level in Crash 4 has 6 clear gems. I know there's 12 here, but we'll get to that in a moment. 3 of them are earned by collecting 40, 60, and 80% of the Wumpa fruit available in the level. There's another clear gem for breaking all of the boxes, as expected. You also earn a gem if you complete the level without dying more than 3 times, and finally, there's a hidden gem that is, well, hidden somewhere in the level. That's what you have to do to obtain a level's clear gems. But what about the other 6 gems? Well, every level in Crash 4 has an inverted variant. It's basically the exact same level, except it's flipped, and it has a filter applied to it. Each dimension has its own separate filter. Some of them are better than others, but we'll get to that later. So basically, when you've got all 6 gems for Rude Awakening, for example, you have to do it again with some visual changes to the level. Oh, the hidden gem is in a different location as well, but it's pretty much an identical level otherwise. We'll come back to inverted mode, but that's how you obtain the 12 gems for each level. Once the gems are taken care of, you'll then need a Platinum Time Trial relic. Gold isn't going to cut it this time around. You'll probably hold off on doing these until you beat the final boss and unlock the triple spin, which drastically increases how fast you can traverse the level. It is a bit more annoying to continuously hit square every Platinum Relic attempt, certainly more than just holding R2 for the running shoes in the Insane Trilogy, but I have to admit, the triple spin really grew on me as I played through the game. It's quite satisfying to see what you can pull off and what you can skip by using the massive speed boost that you get from it, especially when using it in the air. It also didn't really have a negative effect on my hands either, like I thought it would when I started the Platinum Relics. I quite liked the triple spin overall, but I can completely understand why a lot of people aren't a fan of it. Now, once you've gotten the Platinum Relic for Rude Awakening, you're not done with relics because you also need to get the Insanely Perfect Relic. This is basically just a Crash 1 clear gem. You have to break every crate in the level and finish it without dying a single time. Except it's a bit more difficult here than in Crash 1 because the levels are a lot longer and a lot harder. Especially toward the end of the game where you have levels like Rush Hour, which has 441 boxes. It's one of the longest levels in the series and has a tricky vehicle crossing section at the very end of the level. The Insanely Perfect relics are probably the pinnacle of Crash 4 difficulty outside of developer time trials. Some people would say it's the Platinum Relics since you have to be quick, but a reset of a Platinum Relic is much quicker than having to restart another Insanely Perfect Relic attempt. Playing a Platinum Relic is a bit more stressful because you cannot wait around for pretty much anything. Insanely Perfect Relics, you can wait around as much as you want, but the more you wait around, the more painful it's going to be when you eventually die. So they are all the things that you need to complete a Crash 4 level. Now, let's see what that looks like in the grand scheme of things. 228 clear gems from the regular levels, another 228 clear gems for the inverted mode, 4 colored gems which don't pose much of a challenge with the exception of the blue gem. To get that, you need to complete the level dragging on without breaking a single crate, which also means no checkpoint boxes, but even then you can just use the bonus round as a checkpoint instead. You need 38 Platinum Relics and 38 Perfect Relics, and you also need to collect 21 flashback tapes. Flashback tapes are kind of like death roots in the original trilogy. You make it far enough into certain levels without dying and you'll be able to pick up the flashback tape, but if you die before reaching it, it will be grayed out and you won't be able to collect it. Each one of these flashback tapes unlocks a flashback level that you need to complete as well, and they can get quite challenging. The upside is that you can die as much as you want in these, and there's one checkpoint in each level, which is necessary since these levels are basically puzzles, and it will take you multiple attempts to figure them out. Breaking all of the crates in these is required as well, and that's what makes them so difficult, because getting to the end of them isn't the challenge here. Figuring out a way to break all of the crates and make it to the end alive is going to take a bit of time to master. That said, doing all of this requires a lot of time, and it's very easy to feel burnt out having to complete every level twice with some slight visual changes. I think Crash 4 is a brilliant game with too much bloat that weighs it down. Here's one thing I would change, and I think it would make the completion process of Crash 4 a lot better. I'd honestly remove the requirement of inverted mode for completion. The mode can stay for all I care. I don't mind whether they get rid of it completely or use the idea for something else. I don't know, just drop the requirement for completion. Some of the filters are cool, but realistically this mode doesn't add anything to the game. Crash 4 without the inverted mode already offers so much that nobody would care if it wasn't here. The last thing you want to do after finishing a very difficult or a really long and tedious level is to play the level again but flipped around. If you just finished Toxic Tunnels, for example, you got the Perfect Relic, the Platinum Relic, you got all the normal mode gems, why is it necessary for you to do it again? Like, I've just proven that I can beat the level without dying a single time while collecting every box for the Perfect Relic, and now I have to collect all the boxes again for another gem. Why? Finish the level without dying 3 times or less for the inverted gem? I've already done it without dying a single time for the Perfect Relic. What is the point of this mode? It's a cool idea, but the way it's implemented in the game was wrong. It's just unnecessary bloat to the game. Not to mention, some of these filters are genuinely awful on the eyes. For example, when you finish a level in the Oedipus dimension, the reward is you have to do it again, but this time it looks like this. I'm not sure how a filter like this was tested and approved to be in the final game, because no one wants to play a repeat of a level they've already done, but they most certainly don't want to do it like this. This starts to strain my eyes when I play it for a while. The 11th dimension has a comic book filter, which at first is kind of cool, but again, looking at this for long periods of time is not fun. It also has pop-ups every time you hit a crate, which doesn't help on the polar section where you need to pay close attention to what's in front of you. By far the worst filter though is the Snacks dimension water filter. This not only makes things harder to see, but it actually slows down the gameplay tremendously. The Snacks dimension was the worst choice to use this filter on because it features Rush Hour, already one of the longest levels in the entire series, and for the first half of it, you're playing as the slowest character in the game. This filter is the last thing this level needed. There are some good filters in the game. The Salty Wharf dimension has a filter where you spin to paint the world back to color. Bermugula's Orbit has a filter which isn't awful on the eyes and actually makes crates easier to see, so I didn't mind this one. But it doesn't matter whether I like some of them or not, because the mode itself doesn't need to be in the game regardless. It makes the game a lot more repetitive, especially when you factor in that some levels have alternate versions, where you see the level from another character's perspective. Essentially, they start off as a different character and then they phase back in to a level that you've already played. For example, in Cortex Castle, you play as Crash, and at one point, this happens. In Seeing Double, you start off playing as Cortex and see it from his perspective, which eventually phases back into the Crash part from Cortex Castle. That means you're playing the Mask Gauntlet section twice here. Factor inverted mode into this, you end up playing that one Crash section 4 separate times for the gems alone. Another example is Bears Repeating. Its alternate version, Building Bridges, starts off with Torna, where it transitions back to Crash and you have to do the polar section 4 times. Some people already aren't a fan of the idea of having to play a portion of the level a second time, but inverted mode just makes this even worse. Again, I think removing its requirement for completion and all of its gems would make the game better. If anything, they could have repurposed inverted mode for something else. I don't know, mini games, a separate mode, something not related to the main story or completion of the game. At this point, if we cut that mode out of the game, we'd have 228 gems as opposed to 456. You could leave it here and everything will be much better, but you could lower that even more. There's a mod called the Crash Bandicoot 4 Enhanced Edition, and it basically achieves what we're doing here. It gets rid of the inverted mode, but it includes an option to restore it if you like it and want to actually play it. And it also takes a bunch of other clear gems out. For example, the gems for collecting 40, 60, and 80% of the Wumpa fruit are removed. Instead, collecting Wumpa fruit in a level is the method of unlocking skins, and that's the reward. I don't mind those gems being in the game, but I also wouldn't mind if they were taken out at the same time. The thing is, those gems are just kinda there. You don't really think about them. There was only one level I finished where I didn't get the 80% Wumpa fruit gem after breaking all of the crates. One level out of 38 where that happened. Again, these gems are just sort of there existing. I don't mind them being here, but if they weren't here, not much would change. One gem I definitely think is pointless is the 3 death gem. We already have so many death related collectibles like the flashback tape where you can't die leading up to it. We have the perfect relic where you can't die once throughout the entire level. At that point, why even include a gem for dying 3 times or less? You're never going to go out of your way to get this. You're just going to get it when you do the insanely perfect relic. I think they are the things I'd change to make the experience a bit better. No inverted mode and cut down on the gems a bit. It would cut the playtime down by tens of hours, and that's a good thing considering the tens of hours are just repeating levels you've already played in slow motion. That's what I'd change. But let's snap back to reality and take a look at some of the highlights from my playthrough. Highlights are going to be good or bad depending on the perspective we're talking about, my perspective playing or the viewer's perspective watching me stream. The first few levels in the game aren't too difficult. Rude Awakening has a pretty tough platinum time, especially for it being the first level. I know some people really struggled on it, then gave up entirely after realizing they couldn't get the platinum on the first level. But in reality, it's just a tough level to get platinum on, and the next few after that are a bit easier. Things start to pick up in the Salty Wharf dimension with Jetboard Jetty. I'd say this is the first big challenge you might face while trying to get a platinum or a perfect relic. It's quite long, and it also features a mini boss at the end of it. In a time trial you don't have to do this, but in a perfect relic attempt you do. It's not difficult, but you can easily lose an entire run to it. The next big step up happens in the Mosquito Marsh. There's some fairly annoying levels like Run It By You with the jetboard section at the end. Really easy to miss a single crate here. Then of course you have to do that bit again in No Dillo Dallying, the alternate version. The 11th dimension is one of my favorites in Crash 4. Nothing too crazy in terms of difficulty here. If anything's gonna kill runs here, it will probably be Polar's section and missing some crates. I had a couple runs ruined by missing crates here, although they did release an update not long after the game's release where they fixed the hitboxes. Trying to pick up crates in this level pre-patch was the most miserable Crash 4 experience. Now you can no longer blame the hitboxes for missing crates, it's all you. The Egopus dimension features some of the hardest levels yet. One of the levels here is Fossil Fueled, which isn't too difficult, but in my opinion it's the worst Cortex level in the game. You can't lock on with his gun, and there's so many moving targets in this level. It matters a lot in the Platinum Relic since you have to go fast, but still not one of my favorites to play in general. Dino Dash and its alternate version, Rock Blocked, were really weird for me. The Platinum Relic on Dino Dash was very easy, but the Rock Blocked Platinum took me a few hours to get. It also has this very long and easy Dingo Dial section, so every attempt wastes a lot of time and it gets old very quickly. But for the perfect relics, it was reversed. Dino Dash took me ages. I died multiple times at the very end of the dinosaur chase section, and if you didn't know, there's a few things in this game that go straight through Aku masks. So I collected every crate, I made the final jump, but the T-Rex landed on me, so I died. I can't remember whether or not I had Aku masks, but either way it wouldn't matter, because that attack goes through Aku masks. Like the lava. You'd think Crash would have an animation for touching lava with an Aku mask where he shoots in the air with his pants on fire, but no, it's an instant reset. And then Rock Blocked, I think I managed to get the perfect relic on my 3rd or 4th attempt, but the first attempt that actually got to Crash's part was the perfect run, so I can't complain. Bermugula's Orbit has very fair levels, it's a nice break after the previous dimension, but it does end with Crash Landed. This level marks the next big step up in difficulty. Most levels after this point are super long and brutal. If anyone watched me stream this game though, you'll know that I lucked out on Crash Landed. I did a normal run of this level for some gems. I think I died 27 times or something. And once I finished it, I said, right, let's do the perfect relic. One attempt later, I had the perfect relic. I think the previous gem run allowed me to learn pretty much every section of the level, so all I had to do was piece it together. Still though, not missing a single crate on the last part, I don't think anybody watching expected that, not even me. It's a good thing that Crash Landed didn't take long though, because in the snacks dimension, Rush Hour took me about 3 hours. Excruciatingly long level, and inverted mode makes it even worse. I lost so many runs to the final section, the vehicle crossing part. Even lost a couple runs to the final jump. The final jump from the last vehicle to the end platform. Yeah, that wasn't fun. The crate escape is quite annoying, it's got a difficult last section of the level, but really the final 2 crates are the problem. You're jumping from platform to platform, some of them have crates, and missing a spin is really easy here for some reason. When it looks like you're right next to a crate and you spin it and it just doesn't do anything. This often leads to a reset because platforms fall shortly after landing on them, so whether you make it off alive or not, the crate is lost forever and you need to restart. And on Cortex Island, the levels are certainly not easy, but they don't compare to Toxic Tunnels. This is probably the most difficult level in the entire series. It's long, there's plenty of places to lose a run. Toxic Tunnels also features the colored gem path gauntlet. There's plenty of crates in the gauntlet too, so you have to go through it for the perfect relic. Thing is, even when you're out of the gauntlet, there's so many different ways to screw up a run. This level alone, for the normal mode, took about 3 hours or something, which leaves my total playtime for this save file at 107 hours. Kind of annoyed I didn't do it a bit faster just so it came out to 106 hours instead. So back to the question in the title of the video, is it worth 106% completing Crash 4? For most people, no. I can't sit here and tell people their time is worth spending on Rush Hour inverted mode. However, I can say everything except for inverted mode is worth completing. The game is a lot of fun, and offers very tough challenges that feel great to overcome. The Platinum Relics are all pretty fair with their times, and I really enjoyed collecting them all. I really like how they brought Crash 1 gems back in form of perfect relics. The flashback levels are so good, especially the last few. It's challenging content that, if you're a fan of Crash and platforming, you'll enjoy it, and I think it's worth your time. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I fucking suck at these games. I love Crash 4. In my review when the game came out, I said it was my favorite Crash game. I still agree with that. I love what this game does with pretty much everything outside of completion requirements. It's my favorite Crash game, but because of inverted mode, it is not my favorite Crash game to complete. My guess is the developers were obviously very good at their own game, so they thought, well, the game's kind of short, isn't it? Because we're beating all these levels and getting all the clear gems and perfect relics so quickly. So inverted mode, yeah, it's going to add a bit of playtime. But for average players like me, getting the perfect relics and the platinums and all the other stuff is a lot of playtime already, especially for a platformer. I really enjoyed coming back to the game. The positives outweighed the negatives for me. My recommendation is, if you've not played this game, play it, avoid inverted mode, and if you really want to play it afterwards, or if you just end up enjoying it, because not everybody dislikes it. If you end up wanting more, if you feel like it, if you feel like you're up for it to complete the save file, then go and do it. That being said, you can let me know down below what your opinions are on this, and whether or not you think it's worth doing. Thank you for watching. Definitely subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you all in my next video.